Okay, everybody, it's Wilds of Eldraine pre-release time. Let me tell you what to expect and the archetypes to look for as you build your deck. Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast, and pre-releases are some of my favorite events. Everybody comes together, checks out the new set, and plays with the new cards for the first time. Now, these will be happening at your local game store, so reach out and pre-register. But what then, once you show up? Well, you're going to be handed this pre-release pack and need to make a deck. In fact, let me kick it over to our top correspondent, Gavin, to show you what's inside. Thanks, Gavin. Well, here we've got a Wilds of Eldraine pre-release pack. Let's crack this thing open and see exactly what you get inside so you know what to expect. So take that little hair strip out there, open it up. Ooh, look at this, you get a fun little poem. Good people of Edgewall, come step with my beat, past hamlet and cottage and cobblestone street, or river and stream, bewitched and beguiled, but follow me into the wilds. Very cool. Love that little bit of flavor right there. That's nice. You've all these punch out counters right here if you want them, including, this is something kind of new, stun counters. I haven't seen these many times before. It's kind of fun. Stun counters, got a bunch of fun stuff here. But of course, what we're really getting at is what's inside this guy right here. So let's set this aside and crack it right open. So you're gonna get spin down D20 with the Wilds of Eldraine set symbol right there, ready to go. You're gonna get, of course, your 6 boosters. You're gonna use to build your sealed deck. Here they are in all their delight. I'll be making a video cracking these tomorrow, talking about how to build your deck. So there's that. You also get this fun little pre-release promo card pack. Let's see what we got inside, huh? Let's see what we got. Okay, you can play this promo card in your deck. Ooh, it's the Goose Mother. Yes, that's so exciting. There it is. Sick. I got a foil Goose Mother. What a heck of a first Eldraine card to open up. Plus, you get these rolls, which are double-sided and awesome. So that's really cool. And yeah, that's what you can expect here. There's also a couple other things nestled here in the box. We've got a little bit here about how to build a pre-release deck. Although I'm going to get into this in a second, so I don't have to memorize this too much. But there it is. There's a little bit about all the roles as gingerbread people, which I find absolutely delightful. There's this little divider right here, which is very cool. And then you've got this arena code card as well, which is there to help you get stuff on arena if you want to. All right, and that's everything you're going to find in the pre-release pack. Now, back to you, Gavin. Thanks, Gavin. Now, as I mentioned, you can come back tomorrow for the full deck build. But the gist of it is this. You're going to need to build a 40-card deck, picking out about 23 cards to play, and then play them with about 17 lands. To help narrow it down, you're probably going to want to pick 2 colors. Which 2? Well, look through and see what you have. Things you really want in limited are evasion, so mechanics like flying, removal to kill off your opponent's creatures, and of course, just generally strong cards and bomb rares. One other thing to keep an eye on is your mana curve. The idea here is that you have strong cards to play at all points of the game. If everything is cheap to cast, you'll run out of gas in the long game. But if everything costs 5 and 6, you'll be too far behind by the time you get there. So you want a nice little curve of at least 2 through 6 drops. A well-built limited deck usually has a solid distribution of at least 4 2-mana creatures, 4 3-mana creatures, 3 4-mana creatures, and at least 2 creatures of 5 or more mana. You can, of course, go higher on each of those as long as you aren't dropping lower anywhere else. And it's worth noting that in this set, because of adventure, you may have some more high drops in your deck than normal. That can be okay because they're doing something else first. Now, here's something I see people get wrong all the time: the mana curve of your non-creatures. It's good to keep in mind, but it can be a bit more varied because you usually play them on a turn other than what their mana cost is. For example, Armory Mice, a creature, is a card you will play on turn 2, but Cooped Up is a card you won't play on turn 2. So you shouldn't put Cooped Up in the stack with your 2-drop creatures. That's misleading. In general, when deck building, I make a curve of cards I'm going to play on that turn on top, and then below it, the curve of spells I won't necessarily play that turn. Just a little tip for you. So there's particular card effects and curve, sure, but one other way to get pulled into a color is with multicolored cards and color pairings. Every 2-color combination in Wilds of Eldraine has its own theme, and by knowing what they are, it can help you maximize how to build your deck. You don't have to play these strategies if you're in those colors, but knowing them can often point you in the right direction. Additionally, one fun thing in this set is that each of the color pairings shows off our take on one kind of classic fairy tale story. That can often point you in the right direction as well. Let me run you through the archetypes. Kicking things off, White-Blue is a flying tempo deck that's all about the Frost Queen fairy tale. You play some cheap creatures and then can use things like tap and freeze cards to slow your opponent down and get just past your opponent. Keep an eye out for Solitary Sanctuary, which is an excellent uncommon for the deck that can slow your opponent down and pump up your creatures. And also, of course, the gold uncommon, Charade of the Numbing Depths. Not only does it freeze something, but whenever you tap one of your opponent's creatures, you draw a card. Nice. Moving on to blue-black, we have fairies, which are our take on the classic Sleeping Beauty story. You want to assemble a nice curve of fairies yourself, complete with some nice tricks and removal. Fairy Fencing is always a decent removal spell, but its power really grows in a fairy deck. Even some more trinkety fairies like Fairy Dream Thief are great to amass a force early, but also give you a bit of late game play. Obria is the legendary uncommon here, a cheap flyer that also slowly dings your opponent as you play your fairies. Aw, rats is what your opponent will be saying when you are playing black-red, which is all about rats. Based on the fairy tale of the Pied Piper, this deck makes tons of rats and uses them from everything from attacking to sacrificing and beyond. Cards like Tattered Ratter and Twisted Sewer Witch make your rats all that much harder to deal with effectively, and Totentan's Swarm Piper is just the card to lead your rats into battle and make it hard for your opponent to block. Big, beefy creatures. Hey, it's not original, but also what's not to love about smashing your opponent with size? A big breakpoint in this deck built around our take on the tale of Little Red Riding Hood is specifically 4 power, with cards like Boundary Lands Ranger and Territorial Witch Stalker really turning on once you get 4 power on the board. And speaking of power 4, Ruby, Daring Tracker, does just what you need, both accelerating you right to 4 mana on turn 3 and being a 3/4 attacker herself once you have something big in play. Green-white is a fun one focused on auras. Use cards that trigger off being enchanted or enchantments coming in, like Rhyme for Reindeer and Tanglespan Lookout. Don't forget that rolls count for these too, so you'll want to prioritize roll makers a little bit more here. And at the top, it's time for a tale as old as time, Armont and the Beasts, which both make something a monster and then pumps up your enchanted creatures further. White-black loves a good deal, so its deck here wants to bargain. In this deck, featuring our take on Snow White, you can expect to toss away a lot of enchantments and rolls. So on top of fueling your bargains, you can also use Knight of Doves, Savior of the Sleeping, and Ashiok's Reaper to keep the cards coming as you bargain away all manner of rolls. Your uncommon here is Neva, stalked by Nightmares, who lets you bring something right back and then rewards you as you sacrifice enchantments. Blue-red is something it's never been before. Nah, just kidding. Its spells matter. This deck is based on our take of the classic fairy tale, The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Mocking Sprite can reduce your spell costs, while Unruly Catapult can keep pinging your opponent as you cast spells. One thing to really be on the lookout for here is Adventures, which can double duty as cheap spells and creatures. Johan, the uncommon for this deck, even plays with that. He lets you cast instants and sorceries from the top, even Adventures. I hope you're hungry, because black-green is food. Based on the tale of Hansel and Gretel, you want to pick up some food generators, like Monstrosity, and food rewards, like Welcome to Sweet Tooth. Bargain is also nice to have around here, given you'll have some food tokens lying around to bargain away. And the lady who slices and dices it all is Greta, Sweet Tooth Scourge, who both makes food and gives you something, well, sweet to do with it. Red-white is where you'll find the focus is on celebration. Focused on the fairy tale of Cinderella, this deck wants to make a brawl at the grand ball, with cards that have celebration and ways to trigger them. It's simple as a Ratcatcher Trainee or Hopeful Vigil to make your grand ball guests dance. And speaking of dancing, your opponents won't want to tango with Ash, Party Crasher, who gets a +1/+1 counter when you celebrate. And finally, it's time for our green-blue ramp scorecard. Is it ramp this set? Why yes, it is. But hold up, because there is a twist. It has a theme of caring about spells that cost 5 or greater. Pump up your Stormkeld Prowler and draw cards with Up the Beanstalk as you cast big spells. And adventures are especially great, giving you something to do here early and late game. And speaking of going up the beanstalk, have you heard the tale of Troyan and the Beanstalk? They make 2 mana for your big spells, or let you loot in the meantime. So, which of these 10 draft archetypes are you most excited to try out? Do you like the individual fairy tales as archetype thing? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll talk with you again soon, and until then, may your pre-release have a fairy tale ending. You got this! This special machine, made just for us, takes in magic blanks and prints directly onto them. Gone are the days of having to sticker everything for us to playtest, which is a huge time savings. And this is what the majority of our playtest cards look like today, printed onto a magic blank. There are occasionally some reasons to sticker or write on blanks,